not a test.
Hello. Welcome to Disclosure TV. It's been a while since I've went live. The main reason is because I didn't know if I was going to continue on YouTube or not after YouTube's doing what it's doing with the algorithm and with the freedom of speech and all that. So I decided to add in another approach to my channel to make it seem more legit. Well, it's legit anyway. My information is legit. It's factual. I'm just saying I want to make myself more professional. And so I took another approach towards or added another approach towards my channel. If you look on the screen right there, you'll see that Disclosure TV now has a website. All the articles are written by Disclosure TV. If you're trying to find out where I am on the screen, I haven't put the camera on yet. That's just my background. Anyway, if you take a look at Disclosure TV News, it's disclosuretvnews.wordpress.com. We have I've been writing a few articles, along with there's my Twitter on there. There's a link to my the YouTube live stream or YouTube. There's also articles on there about anything and everything from news, politics, science, entertainment, social, the weird, and op-eds. Op-eds are going to be for if you feel like you want to write something and you can send it to me. I haven't set up my email yet, but if you look under the description, you'll see my email under the description. If you want to write an article and send it to me, I'll be more than willing to post it. This is not going to be a biased news outlet at all, and that's what I'm focusing on, is becoming a news outlet. Because of what happened on YouTube with NZ, excuse me, and I had noticed that YouTube was not allowing creators to post anything about what happened in NZ, and the only ones that were allowed to, they were calling those videos conspiracy theories. And then, although they allowed the channels for the mainstream media, they allowed them to stay up, their videos to stay up, and they allowed them to report on it. Which goes to show you that they can pick and choose which channels they want. YouTube is known to be biased. They come out and said that they are pretty much biased. They have attacked conspiracy theory videos. They have attacked prepper videos. They've attacked alternative media, which is what I am. And I'm just going to say they've attacked alternative media altogether. I have a reason for that. There is probably a good reason for that. If you look on the page right here, you can see I have an article stating that says social media and MSM is leading the ban on freedom of speech and alternative media. And it does talk about YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It does talk about that in there. We actually have a new logo. I'm going to get rid of the old one as soon as I can, because I've been working on this, and I've been working on getting press credentials made up. This is our new logo. If you look at the top of the screen, that is our new logo, and I like it better than the other one. And I know this is kind of stupid, but you know, it says Disclosure TV News. Our news is like for real and stuff. And I made that to be jokingly, and I made that to joke. I like it, as most of people know. That's for some reason, for some odd reason, that's the way people talk now. So, if you read our thumbnail when we started, it shows that it says Trump signed EMP proclamation this week, or last week, I think it was last week. And we're going to take a look at that. If you look on your screen, I'll bring up that, and I'm sure you are looking at the screen, and I'll bring up me. Almost got hit by that block, sorry. So if you look at your screen, let me see if I can't make that a little bigger for you. This is the executive order signed by President Trump. It says executive order on coordinating national resilience to electromagnetic pulses, or EMPs. Issued March 26, 2019. And if you also looked at the thumbnail, you saw that he may also have signed some other things, and he did prior to this. He did sign some things that I say is going to go along with this, and is pretty interesting, and it's maybe a sign of things to come. As I said, the United States is in for something big. Maybe WW3, maybe an invasion of its own people. That seems to be happening, especially for freedom of speech. As it says, by the authority vested in me as President of the Constitution of the United States, Section 1, purpose: an electromagnetic pulse has the potential to disrupt, degrade, and damage technology and critical infrastructure systems. Man-made or naturally occurring EMPs can affect large geographic areas. There's not many naturally occurring EMPs on our planet. They do come from solar storms, but really, I don't think that's what he is specifically talking about when he made this bill. I think he just added that in there. That's just my opinion. It can affect large geographic areas, disrupting elements critical to the nation's security and economic prosperity, and could adversely affect global commerce and stability. Yes, of course, the United States leads the world in economic stability, and that's pretty bad when one country can pretty much controls every other economy in the world, and if we fail, everybody else fails. why our government is like that, I have no idea. The federal government must foster sustainable, efficient, and cost-effective approaches to improving the nation's resilience to the effects of EMPs. Section 2, as used in this order, critical infrastructure means systems and assets, whether physical or virtual, so vital to the United States that the incapacity or destruction of such systems and assets would have a debilitating impact on security, national economic security, national public health or safety, or any combination of those matters. So it tells you what an electromagnetic pulse is. Most of you already know. It's a high energy magnetic pulse. It also lists geomagnetic disturbances, which a lot of people say that at the time that may have been a reason why the dinosaurs had part of the reason why the dinosaurs had gone, mainly because our magnetic poles had moved at the time, and it allowed our atmosphere to drop down in strength, and it let asteroids in. It didn't deflect the asteroids, and it didn't burn them up. So it goes on at national critical functions, preparedness. Sector-specific agency is the federal department or agency that is responsible for providing. Those are still definitions. Coordination, the assistant to the president for national security affairs through National Security Council staff in consultation with the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy. So if you remember last year, the Department of Homeland Security did put out a report stating that the United States should prepare for an EMP attack. If you remember, a year prior to September in 2001, 6 months to a year prior to that, intelligence officials also warned the president that something might happen with some planes, and they ignored it. And I believe that was ignored on purpose, and the exact same thing is happening with this. They put out they're not ignoring it, but they put out a warning. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, put out a warning about an EMP, and then the president had, and I don't believe they put out that warning all willy-nilly. Otherwise, the Department of Homeland Security wouldn't have put that out if they didn't already know something, or if something was already in the works. If you had watched Marfugel this past week or so, he had reported that his sources had information stating that something was brought into the country, and it may have been a device of this type or a device of a nuclear type that may have entered the country. And as I said before, I'm a firm believer that the next thing to happen in our country is going to, just like I believe what happened during September 2001, is that our own country was attacked and by its own people. And I believe it's going to happen again, and this time it's going to happen for the purposes of installing a new government. But like I said, it's not gonna. It's gonna cripple our nation. But believe me, the government's still gonna have control over everything. Like I said, I mean, I've said it a million times. This states about the Secretary of Defense, and that actually leads to the Secretary of Defense actually leads to the second part. So the Secretary of Defense shall, in cooperation with the heads of relevant agencies in the United States, allies, international partners, private sector entities, as appropriate, improve and develop the ability to rapidly characterize, attribute, and provide warning of EMPs, including effects on space systems of interest to the United States. Space systems of interest to the United States would be anybody's satellite in orbit. And theirs, and provide warning of EMPs. Well, they've already, DHS has already provided that warning, and they did provide a warning stating that we will be attacked by an EMP. So it says provide timely operations, observations, analysis, forecast, and product for naturally occurring EMPs. So to support the mission of the Department of Defense along with United Allies. Well, actually, NASA does report directly to the NNSA. If you don't know what that is the National Nuclear something. You can look it up. The acronym's NNSA. Actually, I done it in my last video. NASA does report to them on nuclear matters. So EMP, I think they're claiming an EMP as a type of nuclear device. Maybe the same type. I know it has a different effect and it does its own different thing, but I think they are classifying it as a type of nuclear device. Conduct R&D and testing, understand the effects of EMPs on Department of Defense systems and infrastructure. Actually, they've already been doing that. They done that back in 2000, early 2000s. DARPA actually had already did that. They actually even built a small scale city there. And they have been testing the impacts of EMPs for a long time. Now, if you all remember EMPs, you know, in the old 80s movies, people used to talk about how advanced technology had EMPs, could disable our everything there is. You know, aliens could use an EMP and do it. Even in the movie Red Dawn, and that movie keeps coming back to my mind about what things about things that are going on in the old 80s movie. But I think, in my opinion, I don't think we're looking at an invasion of another country. I think our government is invading us. And if you don't know already, they've already done that. I mean, just think about what freedoms you have. And think about what freedoms cost you money, and which freedoms don't cost you money. They've monetized your freedoms. Well, when you monetize a freedom, it's no longer free. So they're talking about sharing incorporate attacks that include EMPs as factor in defense planning scenarios. So they've known about EMPs since the early 2000s. I'm sure they've known about it longer than that. They just didn't have the technology to build something like that. And I'm sure China was actually the first people to, I think, build an EMP or even talk about it. The Secretary of Energy shall conduct early stage R&D, develop pilot programs, and partner with other agencies in the private sector, and characterize sources of EMPs. The Secretary of Homeland Security shall provide timely distribution of information on EMPs, credible associated threats to federal, state, and local governments. You know, in my opinion, he didn't do he didn't put this up for no reason. You know, like I said, it just so happens that the Department of Homeland Security had put out a warning, and now here we have with this. Here we are with this MP preparedness order, executive order. Within 90 days of this date of this order, the DHS Secretary of Homeland Security, in coordination with the head of the SSAs and or other agencies as appropriate, shall identify and list the national critical functions and associated priority critical infrastructure systems. So you know, you all can read this. If you just type in, you can download it and read the rest of it, because I have some other things I got to get into. So we have this, and I'm going to go into something else real quick that may go along with that. So I was looking that up and come across some other presidential memorandas on whitehouse.gov's website. You can get into this, anybody can, and look into it. This was a presidential memorandum for national security and defense, January 16th, 2019. By the power invested in the president, what he's saying in this presidential order is that without presidential action under Section 303, he's giving permission to the Secretary of Defense and to purchase ammunitions or precursor materials for munitions adequately and in a timely manner. Basically, what this is all going to lead to is it's all going. There's several acts, several of these inert materials. Gives the Department Secretary of Defense inert materials for munitions adequately and in a timely manner. Further purchases, purchase commitments, and other actions. Gives him permission to buy a lot of ammunition, and they are in fact doing that in a hurry. As a matter of fact, energetic materials for munitions adequately, even chemical. There's I think this last one may be chemical. Production of chemicals in munitions is essential to national defense. So President Trump just signed memorandums for the Secretary of Defense to, and I looked over the section that he wrote this on, which is Section 303 of the Defense Production Act of 1950. What that is that particular section says that they can, that the Secretary of Defense in a case of wartime, that they can, in a case of wartime, they need to fast track the purchase of ammunition, and then they can go beyond their national borders to buy ammunitions. So the Secretary of Defense is in a hurry to buy ammunition here, and then they can't buy enough here, so he gave him the authority to procure ammunition outside of the United States. That's what that is. So memorandum on the delegation of functions and authorities under 1245. That's the other one that gives the National Defense Act. That's the one that gives the Secretary of Defense the power, which is December of last year, which gives the government the power to purchase, let's see if it's this one. Anyway, there's another one that states that it gives the president the power to buy or obtain funds from by way of personal bank loans, government loans from the bank. So they're in one of these other ones, they're talking about in these executive orders, they're talking about trying to get they need more than $50 million, and the order in the National Defense Authorization Act only limits the power of under $50 million. So he added in an act that lets the Department of Defense procure more funds by way of a private bank to procure loans for the munitions and ammunition and the chemicals to make ammunition and all that. So they are in a huge hurry, and President Trump has also signed an executive order stating that he can do this. He needs to do this in a hurry. So I've heard, I don't know if anybody else has heard about that, but that's what I come across. I come across this yesterday. But for some reason, the United States is in a hurry to gather up ammunition. They're in a hurry to buy ammunition. They are in a hurry to make ammunition, and a lot of it. The one executive order gave the Secretary of Defense the authority to get a bank loan for over $50 million in case there was a $50 million shortfall. So usually the only time that happens is during a time of war. The government will actually ask the banks for the money to fund a war. So I don't know what war, and that's what's part of the that's actually part of the National Defense Act, the National Defense Authorization Act. That's actually the section that it's under, is about procuring information during wartime or conflict when it's needed right then. And for some reason, all this ammunition and all these executive orders are stating we need this right now. So they are stocking up on ammunition big time. If you haven't noticed, all the videos on YouTube, people were catching trains full of people moving the military out, or military equipment, tanks, missile launchers, Humvees, everything. Over the last 6 months or so, they've been doing it even heavily. There's been a lot of troop movement in the sky with helicopters, and they were moving stuff around, and they're moving around. I'm gonna go back to Marfugel video that he showed. I don't have it here, but he had a video showing a guy had called in and gave him a video of the military moving around transformers and sorry about that. He had people, you all didn't get to see all that. That sucks. But anyway, here's all the EMP stuff, all the national security acts. You can look at it, look it up yourself. It's whitehouse.gov, presidential actions. You can go find it, just filter by national security and defense. A lot of this stuff they don't put out. But the U.S. military is moving around a lot of stuff, and I can actually show you a video. I have a video myself. Let me find it. I'll actually show you a video of some helicopters flying over my house the other day. I don't know if I have it on here. That sucks. I thought I did. Anyway. Oh, there it is. There you go. So I know that looks a little odd there.
Yeah, they've been doing that for like 3 months now. They come from that way. So that would be maybe Fort Knox. That's probably Fort Knox. Fort Knox is that direction. Yeah, they've been doing that for like 3 months now.
If I can fix this up for you a minute.
They come from that way. So that would be maybe Fort Knox. That's probably Fort Knox. Fort Knox is that direction.
Anyway, if you are looking at that,
yeah,
I wish I could turn it
they've been
around.
doing that for like
you. I should already have that fixed.
3 months now.
But yeah, that's 4 Black Hawk helicopters. I have noticed an increase in train traffic around my area. A huge increase, not just a little, but a lot.
Maybe Fort Knox. That's probably Fort Knox.
And I've just noticed a huge increase all the way around.
Direction.
So, you know, not only is all that happening, but right now we have an asteroid actually headed towards us in 2027 that I'm pretty sure that NASA's hiding. There's a caravan of 20,000 people headed here. Troops are heading into Venezuela. On top of that, RBG still hasn't made a public appearance. You know, social media is trying to ban freedom of speech. The government's trying to ban freedom of speech. We have, you know, there's a lot of things going on. The government's incorporated AI into everything now. Every person in the United States is being spied on right now. Everybody. Prepper Nurse 1, he got swatted 2 days ago, 3 days ago, or a few weeks ago, maybe. He said he couldn't say anything, but he did a video on where he got swatted and the cops came in on him, and I didn't even know what swatting was until I watched that video. So you know, a lot of things are going on. Russia sent 100 troops to Venezuela. I'm not so sure. You know, the United States. Well, we can read that if you want. Russian Air Force lands in Venezuela with 100 troops. And they're still there. They made a pit stop over in Iran, and I'm pretty sure they picked something up. I mean, I'm pretty positive they did. And actually, you know what? I'll show you all that, but I'm gonna show you something else. All right, I don't have it on here, but anyway, it says this is what I wrote. This is a news article for my website for Disclosure TV News. 2 Russian Air Force passenger planes were seen arriving at Bolivar International Airport in Caracas on March 24th in Venezuela. The 2 planes left from a Russian military installation. Flight tracking radar website showed the 2 planes were bound for Caracas. One being a I guess a Lucian IL-62 passenger jet, and an Antonov AN military cargo plane. It had the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation and 100 covert Russian troops. The second cargo plane was carrying 35 tons of unknown material. This was published by Sputnik. The Russian news agency Sputnik reported that the flights carried officials that were there to exchange consultations. One plane left Venezuela, headed back Sunday, while the other stayed. According to the planes also stopped at Syria. They stopped in Syria at a Syrian base prior to entering Venezuela. I wrote, I'm sure they picked up weapons. I'm sure they did. Back in December, 2 Russian nuclear Tu-160 strategic bombers flew to Venezuela in a show of force against the U.S. and to align support with Maduro. As you know, the CIA went in there last year, caused a bunch of ruckus, and now they're in a massive blackout. They've had one massive blackout, and they're into another one. So everybody wants to know, is the United States there for oil or not? My opinion, they're not. In this article, it states the mainstream media is reporting the U.S. is in Venezuela for oil, and that's what their go-to is for everything, is oil. Venezuela's oil is of very low quality. In fact, 6 shipments of Venezuelan oil has been rejected by the refineries because it was worthless, and this was just a few months ago. Venezuela has the largest oil deposit in the world, but it's too deep to acquire, too poor to use, and would cost too much to pump. They basically have to, before they can pump it out, they have to thin it down. And then where they have to thin it down, it would cost too much money to thin it down and then pump it up. And where it's too deep, they can only get 25% of the oil that's there. Basically, it's tar. That's what it is. It's tar. And not only that, but a handful of refineries, maybe 4 or 5, is only equipped to handle that thick of a crude. So the technology actually doesn't exist to go further to get the rest of the tar sands is what it's called. It's called tar sands. The tar sands in Venezuela, they can't get the tar out because it's too thick to pump out and it's too deep to get. So yes, it's the largest deposit in the world, but the technology doesn't exist to get it. So it would be of no interest to the United States. But what is of interest to the United States is Russia moving in their backyard. That would be an interest. So why is the U.S. interested? They don't want Russia in the U.S.'s backyard, or the preparations for World War III have begun. That's my two things. To be fair, the U.S. has extended its backyard to every corner of the globe. It's even been said that the United States no longer functions within its own country, meaning it's functioning and making decisions from other countries. If this is true, you're looking at the complete U.S. takeover on a scale hitherto undreamt of, which means you couldn't even dream of something like this. It's too big and too complicated to even dream about. The Nazi Third Reich isn't even a sufficient enough of a comparison for what they're trying to do, which is hashtag Agenda 21. Venezuela only pumps out 211,000 barrels a day. That's it. They don't pump out much more than that. As a matter of fact, Venezuela was actually just hit with another nationwide blackout. They were actually just hit with another blackout. Third one this month. People are calling it a hack job. It's hackers. I'm sure it is. Venezuela Maduro blames the blackout on sniper and tells people to pray. Venezuelan leader claimed in a broadcast the latest outage was caused by mercenaries sent by the coup-mongering right. So not only that, but if you don't know, Juan Guaido's car was attacked. His convoy was attacked while his wife was meeting the president. And if you know, the United States has also taken Venezuela's, kicked out all of Venezuela's all their whatchamacallits. Sorry, they've kicked out all their I know the word. They kicked out all their people from the consulates here, and seized and gave all the and let Juan Guaido's people in, and then they seized all their bank accounts. So that's kind of messed up. I mean, people are saying that the reason that all this is happening is that they need the U.S. wants a regime change to get to Venezuela's oil. You have to understand that the United States is the world's largest oil producing nation now. They control the oil fields here. They also control the oil fields in the Middle East. Trust me, they don't need Venezuela's oil. They don't need it. Even if they did need it, they couldn't do anything with it. Even if they did have it, it's too deep to get. You know, the United States is controlling all the prices of the oil all over the world, and they're controlling the prices, and the prices are up to $3 and $4 a gallon. Inflation, I'll tell you now, I do not believe in inflation whatsoever. I do not believe in inflation at all. You know, I don't believe in any inflation whatsoever. Yeah. Another thing is the United States is made an executive order to get a lane. They're called a lane. It's ALANE, which is a new battery source for drones. What it is it's a chemical that comes off of hydrogen, and it could basically revolutionize the electric car or electric automobile industry, or the UAVs. That's what they're getting it for. Just 50 kilograms or 25 to 50 kilograms can run, which is a very small amount, can actually run a fish tank pump and two small fans for over 7 hours by itself from the electricity that's made off of it. And they're actually trying to procure that technology. They're buying that technology for their drones. So imagine 50 kilograms of that running 7 hours on, creating enough electricity without a battery, with just continuous electricity. And it's not hard, because the only thing you have to do to control the output is control the temperature of it, and that's it. And alane is a chemical produced off of hydrogen. So, not only that, you have, the United States, or NASA, they're still going to Mars. If you don't know, here I'll read to you about that. 1,350 foot wide asteroid is headed to Earth, and NASA's trying to hide it. It's called 1999 AN10. If you look on the screen, you'll see it rotating there. That's what it is. But it took them forever to find out about it. There's actually only 2 reports of this asteroid. After NASA figured out that its trajectory was going to lead to Earth, they stopped reporting on it. So let me read this to you. I'm sure you've seen the headlines reading, "Just as mine does, asteroid headed for Earth. Will Earth be destroyed?" You start reading and come to find out it's going to miss the Earth by 2 million miles. This isn't one of those articles. Scientists say 2 or 3 million miles isn't that far away when you look at it on a universal scale. I disagree. Yeah, that really is a long way off, 2 million miles. if you drove 70 miles an hour for 70 miles an hour, 24 hours a day, it would take you 3 years to get there. If you included breaks, you're looking at 4.5 years. That's a long way off. This picture right here that you're seeing right there, that's actually the Earth and the Moon at 6 million miles away. So if you were to have, and that's zoomed in. So actually that would look like that you probably wouldn't even see the moon. That's how far away it is. NASA established the Planetary Defense Coordination Office. Its job includes early detection of potentially hazard object, PHOs, tracks and characterizes PHOs, and issues warnings of the possible effects of potential impacts, studies strategies and technologies for mitigating PHO impacts, and plays a lead role in coordinating the U.S. government planning for response to an actual impact threat with FEMA. And the NASA coordinates with FEMA and the NNSA. So I will mention the PDCO again later on in this article, as I found an odd coincidence, which it does lead back to NASA.gov, Planetary Defense Organization. So in 1999, four Australians had found the NEO, which is near Earth object, had found it. They were able to view it a few days every year and a half. So at first they were unable to determine an orbit. They dubbed the asteroid 1999 AN10, and that has stayed the same. What's important about that is that the orbit, after you find an object, you name it in a particular form, which is 1999, the year it was found. A represents the day, the month, the half month of the month it was found in, which a half month is one, the 1st through the 15th, and then the 16th through the 31st. So A is actually January in the area of 1st to the 15th. N is, I forget what N is, and 10 is the 10th object of that month. So this was the 10th object found in the first part of January. It was the 10th object to be found. You won't find very much about it. Very little information is given, but what is given isn't very good. So I've actually found this, which is an orbit, and 1099 AN10 is showing that it's missing it by actually 16,000 miles. Well, at first they thought it was 16,000 miles. The 1999 AN10, the asteroid, is actually coming closer to the sun with every orbit. I think 200,000 miles or something with every orbit, and it took them forever to find out what orbit it was. So NASA reported that it will either miss us by 16,000 miles, or it will impact Earth in 2027. However, they are uncertain of the trajectory. 1999 AN10 so far is the largest tracked NEO to ever come this close. Now, back to the 1999 AN10, what's important about that name is that once the trajectory is found, they actually use another technique to naming it, and they give it a big number. So once they figure out the orbit of a planetary body, or an asteroid in this case, they give it a real long name, a real long number. So 1999 AN10 still doesn't have a designation of a asteroid that has had its orbit verified or its trajectory verified, and that's how you can tell which. Only 10% of objects that have been found, only 10% have actually been named. Have actually been named after, had their name changed after they figured out what the orbit was. So 1999 AN10 still has that name, and they haven't changed it because the orbit is still unsure. Now, for the even worse news, the article says scientists other than NASA have noted new data simulations that increase the chances of impact in 2027. It increased to 96%. The chance of impact in 2027 is 96%. If it misses us by NASA's 16,000-mile projection, there will be at least another 25 more close approaches between 2027 and 2044, claiming either way that 1999 AN10 will impact Earth. That's probably why NASA has only released info on it twice since 1999. Not a lot of people know about this one. Now, the weird thing about that is NASA actually does a... you can read more about that, about this, know more about the. I have a video about NASA hiding an asteroid impact, and you can watch that video. So, not only that, but NASA actually, the PDSO has an exercise from 2017. Which is an exercise only. We'll come to find out after I watched the exercise, the dates that they were using and the information that they were using actually lined straight up with 1999 AN10. And what the exercise is that if they find an object, the exercise notes that is based on the fact if they find an object, a near Earth object, and it has a trajectory of to impact Earth, that they would build what they would do if that happened. Well, in the simulation, in the scenario, or in the exercise that they have, which it says exercise only on the video, you can find it on YouTube, and it's an exercise only, so it's fake. They're saying that this is an exercise, it's not real, and you don't have to, we may not be here in 2027. Yeah, we may not be here in 2027. So, but the PDO, the exercise actually, and the dates actually line straight up with 1999 AN10 in 2027. And so, you know, NASA may be hiding this. Like I said, there's only 2 reports of 1999 AN10. You can go look it up yourself. You're more than happy to. All I do is gather the information and report it like I see it. So if you look to the right, you'll see 20,000. This is the 20,000 known orbits of the near-Earth objects that NASA has already found. The blue ones, the turquoise blue ones, and the purple line, that is us. So, you know, imagine if you look at all that, and you view that video that I'm telling you to look at. I mean, what are the odds that something is going to impact the Earth? I mean, that's pretty good chances to me. I mean, I'm just looking at it, and you know, we have more than that close to us. You know, so, you know, it's not, a lot of scientists say that, you know, it's not a matter of if we get hit, it's a matter of when, because, and that's true, because if you look at that video right there, I mean, it's a matter of when. And, you know, a lot of people actually believe that there's some seismic events happening right now that probably shouldn't be happening. Actually, I got into, I do a lot of research through Tor, on the Tor, through Tor, because I can't, because the mainstream media only reports what basically the government wants them to report. So I have to find my information through individual sources or sources not from the mainstream media. The mainstream media sucks. You cannot do anything, get any legit information from them. So, you know, that's, in order to get relevant information, you have to go outside the box. You have to go outside. So, you know, I have to find my information somewhere other than the mainstream media. And I always investigate that information, and I suggest you all do the same. The mainstream media never was that way. It never was. But like I said, right now, the title of this video is the government, based on what I showed earlier in the video. If you go back and look at it, these are the presidential orders. If you know that he earlier he had issued an EMP order. Well, if you go back in his other executive orders, you'll notice that he also issued the Secretary of Defense to they gave him power to buy up all the ammunition and all the weapons he could. And this is back, if you look at the screen, this is back in October 5th, the late part of 2018. He told the Secretary of Defense to procure loans. It gave him an executive order to procure bank loans from private banks for over $50 million, and then told him gave him the power to procure every bit of ammunition and every bullet and every weapon he could get their hands on. And that's what all these right here that you're looking at on your screen is. So it's already March, it'll be April. Well, it's April. So for the last 6 months, the Secretary of Defense has actually been buying up every piece of ammunition he could find. And that's odd. The government is definitely doing something. They are definitely buying up, they're stocking up the military for a reason. And what I'm showing you here is proof of that. And if you go there and look, I can show you a few of them if you'd like. That's October 5th. There's just a few. January 16th, 2019. I hereby determine, pursuant to Section 303A of the Act, that the domestic production capability for energetic materials for munitions is essential to national defense. What that means is he's giving power to the Secretary of Defense, and under this section of the Act, it states that under the Act Section 303. It's a timing aspect, meaning do it now. So the president's giving the Secretary of Defense, as you see here, expedient and practical alternative method for meeting the critical need of the capability. He's telling basically all these presidential executive orders are telling the Secretary of Defense to gather up ammunition and do it in a hurry. That's what he's telling them. So he also gave some power to the Secretary of Defense to do a few other things. So, you know, back to the EMP. The EMP, a year ago, DHS put out an alert stating that we were going to, in fact, have be attacked by an EMP. And if you haven't noticed, the military has been doing a lot of moving around lately of the last 6 or 7 months. You know, the military's been training in cities to, they've been training in smaller cities. Actually, I can show you, I can actually show you, if you go to Disclosuretv news.wordpress, this is our website. It'll show, these are articles that are written by us. This is the United States Army Asymmetric Warfare Training Center. This center actually built, it's a training complex, and it was built by the Army. And if you look at it, if you can see this picture right here, yeah, that's an aerial view. The aerial view shows where they built a small U.S. city, a typical small town city. If you look to the right, you'll see a church. They even built a church down to the steeple, the stained glass. They have railroad crossings, apartment buildings, soccer fields, even a subway, all the way down to the railroad crossing signs. And what this is made for is suburban. They are training troops for suburban warfare, and this is actually in a the city this is in is AP Fort Hill, Virginia. A period P period Fort Hill, Virginia. So this is where this is their job, and they use these small cities. They built this small city to train people. Now, if you look over here to your right, where the soldiers are crouched down, they're crouched down in a small area. You know, it looks like it's subterranean. They are also this is all official information from the AWS website, the AWG. All these photos come from the government, all these. And they are training for suburban warfare. They are training for urban combat. And like I said, this is from ours. It even I'll read some of it. It contains everything a small town would have: an ambulance facility, garage, apartment complex, multi-story business complex, Christian churches, and that's what that is. Subways, trains, and railroads. So realistic, it even has railroad crossings, street signs, parked vehicles, even stained glass windows in the churches. It even has stoplights or street light, traffic lights in it. If you look at it, if you go to our website, this is Disclosuretv News .wordpress.com, and you can look at it. So why would the military construct such specific U.S. towns and start training in city locations? Urban combat or urban warfare? Maybe. It would seem the military is preparing for combat on U.S. soil. Whether that fight is against a foreign enemy on U.S. soil or domestic is unknown. It's possible to prepare for one while preparing for the other. Both resemble the exact same conflict. So even if they say they are preparing for an invasion, so if the United States government military is preparing for an invasion onto U.S. soil, that exact same conflict is the exact same conflict that you would have with as if you tried to invade your own country. You would still have the same, it would be still have the same parameters. And as I said, I keep coming back to the movie Red Dawn. That keeps popping up in my mind. Red Dawn does. So, you know, a lot of people are confused. A lot of people are trying to figure out where RBG is, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You know what? She still hasn't been. It's still not public yet. You know, this top photo. My article reads, "Are Dems hiding the death of RBG?" This top photo is actually Ruth Bader Ginsburg is said to be trying to find she dropped her pen, and when she dropped her pen, she was kicking around for it. I've seen about 4 angles of this, and she is not kicking around a pen. There is not a pen on the floor in front of her or underneath her chair, because there's about 4 angles of that. So she is slouched over. And this is at the State of the Union address. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of the greatest justices and most famous to ever sit on the Supreme Court, had taken some time off the bench in December due to a fall that fractured several ribs in November. And that was written by a court email. So any information that you're getting, I found that any information that RGB is that you're getting from Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the mainstream media, all that is actually being given by a court administrator, an email by email, because I received the same email when I actually asked about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I received the same email. So it's actually a third party company that actually is the spokespeople for the whole court system, the whole federal court system. Yeah, she's Deborah Edwards. She is 86, I think. Somewhere around there. So she had broken several ribs while receiving treatment for the incident. Doctors noticed abnormal growths on her lungs on December 21st, and was taken into surgery to perform a pulmonary lobotomy. Removing the abnormal growth. She has been battling cancer for some time. She has survived both colon and pancreatic cancer and a heart stent procedure in 2014. So, she probably, she's not alive. No, if she's not alive, she's not walking around. I'll tell you that. She's not walking around. She may be on a respirator, but she's not walking around. So it is worth noting that many doctors, after I said what she had and what she's dealt with, And it's worth noting that many doctors have a cutoff age for performing such surgeries on patients with advanced ages, with an advanced age. So they cut out part of her. They cut part of her lung out. They cut half of her lung out, and she's 86 years old. I just don't see a doctor doing that. And I actually looked up the surgery, and I looked up the age, what the age cutoff is for that. I actually looked up what they would do. Yeah, she had pancreatic cancer is one of the hardest. Only a few percent of people, if less than 10% of people who have pancreatic cancer actually survive pancreatic cancer. They most of them don't survive once you find out. On January 21st, 2019, Fox News aired a photo announcing the death of RBG. They later apologized for the mix-up. And this is where I said, they created a photo of RBG and then typed her passing on it and then accidentally aired it on TV. You know, you got to go through a lot to put that photo up. Even me airing what I air on YouTube, it takes a lot. It takes a lot for me to do this. So for them to air that, for them to air that, it took a whole lot. So after Fox News incident, some Republicans believe she had passed away, and the Dems were attempting to conceal RBG's death, so Donald Trump couldn't pick his third Supreme Court justice. Conspiracy theories also popped up saying just that. So a lot of the news covered the conspiracy theories on what people thought about Ruth Bader Ginsburg being about her had already passed away and people trying to conceal it. Well, conspiracy theorists didn't bring that up in the first place. The Republican Senate brought that up first and reported that. The mainstream media itself reported that. The conspiracy people, the alternative news media didn't report that. On February the 4th, just 2 weeks after surgery and barely a day after the Republican statements, an article from the Washington Post was written by Robert Barnes. RBG had attended a play on her life at a National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C., performed by her daughter-in-law. All right, so 2 weeks after her surgery, she attended a play. And it takes 8 weeks for her to recover from a surgery like that. But remember, she does still have broken ribs. And an 80-year-old trying to recover from three broken ribs, you're not going to move around too much, buddy. I mean, if anybody knows anything who has a grandmother who's broken any bones whatsoever, yeah, they're not going to be moving around too much after that. You know, it's worth noting that the lung surgery RBG underwent takes some 8 weeks for recovery, and that's for a normal person. That's for a healthy human being. The 85-year-old who also just had 3 broken ribs did it in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks after her surgery, she ended up at a play that nobody saw her at. Barnes stated that he was the only one that was invited to that play. Barnes, which is a writer for the Washington Post. The Washington Post is the go-to newspaper for the deep state and a go-to newspaper for it's where the Democrats go and the liberals go to get their opinion out. After contacting the women, and I myself did this, I contacted the women's theater in Washington, D.C. They didn't respond back to me. There was no mention of the play on the website at the time. And yes, after the report came out that she was there, which was several months ago, I actually went there and called them, and they said that they had no media information available for this play. No mention of the play, a schedule, or even pictures were shared of the event. The Washington Post came under fire when it published several op-eds showing its bias for a preferred political party, not to mention its barrage of anti-Trump articles. The op-eds were written by the deep state, a group of civil servants within the Trump admin who are fighting against Trump and will continue to sabotage his administration at every turn. Now, those aren't my words. That's pretty much what the deep state said when they sent the op-ed. Into the Washington Post. The conspiracies worsened with the Washington Post and the mainstream media all picking up the story. It was a huge story. It was huge. RBG missing and a conspiracy that she's dead. All the mainstream media picked it up. Millions of viewers can account for that, can attest to that. And they were all asking the question, where is Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Are the Dems hiding her death? Still no photos had surfaced. 10 days later, on February the 14th, a mass email sent by a court spokesman was sent to all media outlets stating that RBG had returned to court and she would be in closed-door meetings all day. The court spokeswoman declined to return any questions I asked. Still no pictures of the famous justice had surfaced, even after speculation and conspiracy was running amok. On February 19th, 2019, a mass email was sent from the same court spokeswoman stating that RBG would be in court listening to oral arguments for the first time in 2 months, which is not standard recovery time for such incidents and surgeries that RBG underwent for her age. No pictures were released of her that day. No mention, not a single reporter could catch her riding in a car to and from her home, to and from the hospital, or even from the courts to her home. So that woman is moving around that much and they can't find anything about her. However, during this time, and when I say this is just this is just to show you how stupid that people are, that they actually want us to believe that RBG is not dead and that the mainstream media is not being controlled by the government or by whoever wants to tell them to report whatever they want to report. However, during this time that RBG hasn't been found, CNN was able to capture on video the very instant a secret undercover FBI raid went down at the home of Roger Stone in Florida. Nobody had information for that. No, they were able, the CNN was able to capture the very second that the FBI raided Roger Stone's home, which nobody had released that information. The only people who had that information was the FBI. But CNN was staked out in front of their house. The media can do that, but they can't capture a picture of Ruth Bader Ginsburg getting in a car. That was a sealed, and that FBI raid was a sealed indictment, and a sealed indictment warrant for Roger Stone, and a search warrant for Roger Stone's home. Which means the only people who knew it was happening was the FBI and the judge. But they can't get a picture of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Even after the mainstream media was their frenzy with people not seeing her and people saying that she was dead, they still couldn't get a picture of her. It was on every mainstream outlet, on every cable channel and every satellite channel. It was a big thing. It was a huge thing. Yeah, they do hide. That's the government's number one go-to, is to hide a lie in plain sight, and people can't see it for some reason. The mainstream media is using its own reporting as verified proof that RBG is currently alive, and they are. They're using their own reporting as verified proof, because the problem is that as of recent, the government deems the mainstream media as the official statement of whoever or whatever source or whatever news story that it is, and they want people to believe the mainstream media. Now, once they get out of the mainstream media and people started going to alternative media because they was tired of listening about Donald Trump, and they were tired of listening to lies told every day, they started going to alternative media. And they all started using alternative media sources to get their news. And after that, the viewers and the money was leaving. So they had to do something. So they started after this conspiracy theory, that's when YouTube started changing their algorithms for prepper videos and truther videos and people in the alternative media. As of today, 3/23, which I wrote this on 3/23, the public and the press have yet to capture a photo of RGB, even though she is working in the public sector. Only emails are being sent to the media by a court spokeswoman to verify the whereabouts of RBG. So, that's the only place you can get that information, is from a court spokeswoman. I forget her name. So, I appreciate you all watching. I appreciate you all watching my channel, and I know I haven't been on for a while. And like I said, it's, I've been working on the Disclosure TV news page, and I have a few, but when I found out about the EMP stuff, and then I was looking into the executive orders that Trump had written, and you put two and two together, you see what you get. So, I'm going to continue to investigate everything I can, and I appreciate you all watching. If you all could please share my videos, share the page, like and subscribe. Like I said, I have a website, Disclosuretv.wordpress.com. You can go over there and view articles. We do have articles, and I also I have an op-ed section. If you send me your if you have something to say, write it, send it to me. I'll publish it for you. I'll publish it right on our page, and that if you got something to say. So I do have an op-ed section. So like I said, I appreciate you all watching, and I hope you all continue to watch. And I'm gonna try to get a another video up soon, and I hope Adam, Deborah, I appreciate you all both for watching. I know this is the middle of the day, so I usually do a show at night, but I know it's the middle of the day. But I appreciate you all both for watching, and so I hope you all have a good day. And like I said, I may even come back on tonight, or maybe it'll probably be tomorrow. And I got some other things I'm working on. But like I said, peace out, everybody. I appreciate you watching. This is Disclosure TV.
They can't do this. not a test.